A very good morning to everyone. I'll be discussing on my free paper to establish the relationship between the structural and functional parameters in idiopathic intracranial hypertension. The financial interest was noted in the context of the subject of the study. So IIH is a condition characterized by elevated intracranial pressure and is a diagnosis of exclusion. So major morbidity of IH is visual impairment, which is usually reversible if treated timely. However, 40% of the cases may show permanent visual loss. Because of the increase in the prevalence of obesity, there has been an associated increase in IH, which necessitates the evidence-based diagnostic tools and treatment strategies. So the role of OCT is to differentiate papilledema from pseudopapilledema, monitoring of progression or resolution of papilledema, and determining the cause of loss of vision. Now, the aim of a study was to quantify the relationship comorbidity, that is the structural parameters with visual functional parameters in early and established cases of papilledema in IIH at baseline and at 6 months follow-up. Ethics committee approval was obtained. It was a longitudinal prospective study performed between December 2017 to February 2019. IH patients were recruited from the neuro-ophthalmology clinic and the neurology and ophthalmology OPD. Chronic papilledema cases were excluded. 27 patients who had undergone medical management and weight loss were included in the analysis. Patients who were diagnosed on basis of modified Dandy criteria, early and established papilledema, and age more than equals to 18 years were included. Whereas patients who didn't give consent voluntarily or had any evidence of hydrocephalus or any space-occupying lesion, pre-existing optic neuropathies, dense media opacification, and chronic and atrophic papilledema patients were excluded from the study. So the structural parameters were analyzed based on SDOCT. 3 scans were done: optic disc scan, which evaluated the RNFL thickness; the macular scan, which evaluated the GCL-IPL complex; and the 5-line raster scan, which evaluated the optic disc height. The functional parameters were the best corrected visual acuity, color vision, contrast, visual field charting, VR, and MFERG. All patients received oral acetazolamide in dosage accordance to the requirement. Patients were followed up at 6-weekly interval for 6 months. Appropriate statistical analysis was done with p-value less than equal to 0.05 considered significant. Coming to the results, 80% of the patients were female, whereas 20% were male. The mean age of the patients were 31 plus minus 7.3 years. Headache was the most common symptom present in 90.7% of the cases, with a mean duration of symptoms of 4.5 months. Other systemic comorbidities were PCOD, hypothyroidism, and weight gain within the past 1 year. The mean CSF pressure was 28.27 millimeter mercury, and partial empty cell and distension of the perioptic sheath was noted in 100% of the cases on MRI. 50% of the patient had transverse sinus stenosis on MRV. Now, a statistically significant decline in the thickness of the RNFL and optic disc height was noted over the 6 months. However, GCL had a statistically significant improvement in the thickness in the first 6 weeks, followed by no such statistically significant change. The functional parameters, all the functional parameters had a statistically significant improvement over the 6 months. Now, all the 3 structural parameters at baseline had a statistically significant correlation with the functional parameters at baseline. However, at 6 months, RNFL did not show a statistically significant correlation with any of the functional parameters. Now, in order to understand the role of structural parameters to predict the final visual outcome, a correlation between the two were obtained. And RNFL at baseline did not show any statistically significant correlation with any of the functional parameters at 6 months. Interestingly, the GCL-IPL thickness when the correlation between GCL-IPL thickness at 6 weeks and the final functional parameters was stronger than those that obtained at baseline. This is a graphical representation of the structural parameters at baseline with the final functional parameters. Now, coming to the discussion, all patients had increased optic disc height and RNFL thickness at presentation. Proprietary algorithms to measure GCL-IPL thickness in presence of significant optic nerve head swelling may result in erroneous appearance of GCL-IPL thinning in general, as well as in 20% of IH cases. In our patients also, there was an erroneous thinning of GCL-IPL at presentation with significant disc edema. The Iowa 3D segmentation protocol is a better protocol to measure RNFL and GCL-IPL thickness in such cases. However, it requires superior technical skill and is time consuming. In our patients, the baseline GCL-IPL and the optic disc height values showed a significant correlation with the final functional parameters. However, baseline RNFL thickness did not show any statistically significant correlation with the final functional parameters. And we also noted that GCL-IPL values at 6 weeks had a better and stronger correlation than that noted with the baseline values. So in order to conclude, it is important to identify the artifacts in the GCL-IPL measurements, particularly in presence of disc edema. In the setting of severe papilledema, RNFL can misguide the prognosis, and despite the limitation, GCL-IPL thickness can be a valuable tool for objective evaluation of the integrity of the optic nerve in patients with IH, and optic disc height may be used as an alternative or in combination with GCL-IPL in these cases. Thank you.
Can you explain me why did you get this discrepancy between the RNFL and the functional parameter, why GCIPL was shows more correlation with functional parameter?
The previous studies, a lot of studies have shown that there is a correlation with RNFL thickness and with the functional parameters. But the important thing we wanted to emphasize here is when a patient comes from the neurology OPD, always they tell us to do the RNFL values. But we wanted to show that optic disc height and GCL-IPL had a better correlation than that with RNFL values.
What do you think? Can you explain me why did you get a better correlation with GCIPL rather than with RNFL? Is there any explanation for that?
Ma'am, the RNFL thickness had increased because of the exoplasmic flow stasis, which when resolved, then it's difficult to correlate the values with that of because RNFL will be the first one to fall down when the
I think the explanation given is because GCIPL there is a thickness is much more, and the diameter of the cell body, the ganglion cell, is much more than the RNFL diameter. RNFL is very thin, so sometimes it's difficult to pick up the early changes in RNFL. You can pick up those changes in GCIPL. What is given in the literature? So that is one explanation they say.
Okay.
Mausami, does why for IAS alone, can this apply for any papilledema for that matter?
Yes, sir, it might be, but we did the study only on IH patients. So I can't say about the other.
I think it should be, because papilledema is papilledema, the cause is different.
But the study was only...
The pathology is the same in all the conditions, the cause is different.
Do you find the GCL-IPL changes in quadrantic way corresponding with the RFFN thickness? Any quadrantic GCL loss you have seen in your study?
So we noted a nasal and temporal quadrantic changes more than that of superior and the inferior, but it didn't correlate with the changes with the RNFL quadrantic changes as such.
Okay, one theoretical question is that GCL-IPL change, what is the normal ganglion cell cells there in the normal retinal layer, and what level when it comes down you see a GCL and IPL changes in these situations?
So in machines also there is a color coded already, there's a calibration, and usually we had compared with the controls also, so it's around 70 to 80 for the GCL IPL. 70 to 90 will be the average for the values of